She slowly pulled down the remaining fabric, the material gliding gently over her waist before finally falling to the ground. The nymph's flawless back was completely exposed to Alex's gaze, as if she had stepped out of a dream made of light. Her skin was smooth like fine porcelain, pure white without a single flaw, each inch appearing soft and tantalizing. Her waist was slender, her curves elegant, and her slightly raised hips made her look incredibly sexy. Alex couldn't help but let his gaze wander over her body, feeling that intense attraction as if every inch of her skin was calling him closer. But he was still struggling to resist, trying not to be consumed by this overwhelming desire. The nymph turned her head slightly, a playful and teasing glint in her eyes. It was as if she knew exactly what Alex was going through, enjoying the sight of his struggle to maintain his composure. The corners of her lips curled up with an irresistible allure. "What are you holding back for?" Her voice was low and soft, laced with a hint of teasing laughter. Alex fought to control himself. Even though his heart was ablaze with desire, he didn't want to give in easily. He took a deep breath, trying to steady the fluttering in his chest, his gaze still locked on her unparalleled beauty. "Are you really going to just stand there?" The nymph chuckled lightly, her tone clearly mocking. She slowly turned around, finally revealing herself completely to Alex. Her body had stunning curves, her chest full and perky, her skin as white as snow, like a perfectly carved work of art. Her long, graceful legs made her appear like a goddess. Every move, every expression she made was filled with seduction, silently inviting Alex closer. Alex's self-control was hanging by a thread, but he was still fighting to keep it together. He didn't want to surrender to the temptation so easily. He knew he had to stay calm. Even though a deep longing stirred within him, he held his ground, refusing to move closer. "Can you really resist?" She took a small step forward, her skin glowing radiantly in the sunlight, her voice low and sultry, laced with undeniable desire. Alex's throat tightened, his gaze was heated, but he still didn't answer. His pulse raced wildly, yet he knew he had to stay in control. "Well, it seems you're even stronger than I thought." Her tone held a touch of admiration, but even more so, it was filled with teasing and anticipation. Her fingers traced lightly along her collarbone, slowly sliding down to her chest, silently showcasing her beauty and longing. Each movement was steeped in temptation, as if testing the limits of Alex's restraint. "Maybe you can hold back, but I'm done waiting." Her voice was hushed and filled with desire, carrying an unmistakable need. She moved closer, her body nearly pressing against Alex's chest. Her fingers brushed softly along his cheek, the warmth of her touch making him tense instantly. Her breath was hot against his ear, her voice thick with temptation. "I want you, Alex. I can't wait any longer." The fairy stood before him, her gaze intense and filled with longing. Her eyes traced over his chest, lingering on his firm muscles, as if every inch of him radiated strength. Her breath quickened, every part of her ignited with desire. She ran her fingers across his chest, feeling the power in his body and the strength beneath his skin. "You're so strong," she murmured, her voice laced with restrained desire and admiration. "A man like you must have incredible courage and strength." She lifted her head, her eyes meeting his. In that moment, she wasn't just drawn to his looks, she saw kindness and gentleness in his gaze. She realized that this man wasn't simply driven by physical desire. There was a light in his eyes, something she'd never seen in anyone else before. "You're different from any man I've met," she said softly, a hint of wonder and surprise in her voice. "You have a charm I can't put into words. I can't resist you." The fairy stepped closer, as if her own body was drawn by an irresistible force. Her fingers traced along Alex's jaw, caressing his strong features, her gaze shifting from playful to something much deeper. "I don't want to wait anymore," she whispered, her voice low and husky, dripping with temptation. "I want to spend this night with you, to feel your warmth. I know you feel the same." Her eyes glowed with eager anticipation, and her whole body radiated a magnetic invitation, like every part of her was calling Alex to give in. But Alex stayed where he was, his body tense with desire, yet his gaze still held a trace of control. He sighed gently, lifting her hand away from his face. Despite the thrill that rippled through him at her touch, he didn't give in to the pull. His voice was soft but resolute, carrying a quiet strength that couldn't be ignored. "You're incredibly beautiful, so much so that it's hard for me to keep control," Alex said sincerely, his eyes filled with genuine admiration as he gazed into hers. "But I can't just give in. I'm a gentleman. I won't deny how strongly I'm drawn to you, but I don't truly know you yet, and I haven't felt that deeper connection." He shook his head softly, his expression both gentle and unwavering. "You're bold and straightforward, and I respect that about you," he continued, his eyes warm. "But for me, feelings go beyond a moment of desire. I can see you have an extraordinary charm, but I'd rather take the time to know each other before making any decisions." The fairy froze, taken aback by his response. She had expected Alex to be like the others, to fall easily for her beauty and allure. But his reply left her surprised, even a bit puzzled. She sensed the depth of Alex's restraint, understanding that he wasn't a man driven by appearances and desire alone. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of confusion. "Don't you realize you're turning down a fairy? A woman who's opened herself to you?" Alex smiled softly, a gentle warmth in his eyes. His fingers lightly brushed her shoulder, both tender and steady. "I'm not turning you down," he replied. "I just don't want to rush into anything. You're truly captivating, fairy, but I'd rather have a foundation of something deeper between us than act on impulse." She gazed into his eyes, falling silent for a moment. For the first time, she felt something new, a respect and admiration she hadn't experienced with other men. His restraint and clarity had eased her out of her initial playful teasing. With a soft sigh, she offered him a smile, touched with a bit of resignation and respect. "I guess I underestimated you," she said gently, a subtle note of gratitude in her voice. "You've shown me something different from the others. I thought I understood men well enough, but you've given me a glimpse of what it means to be a true gentleman." Alex smiled gently, his gaze warm and steady. "You're an extraordinary woman," he said. "You have incredible allure and courage, but I truly believe that real beauty isn't just in appearance, it's in the heart." The fairy gave a slight nod, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. She was no longer just a woman trying to tempt Alex. She was beginning to understand and respect him on a deeper level. "Maybe you're right," she murmured, her voice soft, with a hint of relief and admiration. "Perhaps we should take the time to know each other, rather than letting desire lead the way." Alex nodded, smiling. "Exactly. True connection needs time, not just a passing impulse." With those words, the tension in the air began to fade, replaced by a warmth and calmness. They looked at each other, and in that moment, seemed to reach a deeper understanding. Alex took a deep breath, trying to keep his composure and self-control, though the flutter in his heart was getting harder to ignore. From the moment he first saw her, he'd been captivated, not just by her dreamlike beauty, but by a mysterious, almost irresistible allure that seemed to surround her. Every time she drew near, his heartbeat quickened, as if some invisible force was pulling them closer. He looked at her again, a touch of tenderness in his gaze, an emotion even he couldn't fully understand. Maybe it was love at first sight, or perhaps it was some deep-seated longing, stirred awake. Sensing the shift in his expression, she offered a faint smile, her eyes glinting with a hint of mystery. She turned gracefully and walked to the edge of the stream, her eyes falling on the water. Her reflection shimmered in the clear brook, her long hair flowing like silk in the breeze, framing her beauty in a way that seemed almost otherworldly. Her voice, soft and laced with a touch of playfulness, broke the quiet atmosphere. "I've never met a man like you, Alex. He blinked in surprise, taken aback that she knew his name. Just as he was about to ask how, she continued, cutting off his question.